I did not yell. I did not toss anything. The night I finally realized what was really happening, I made a folder on my computer called Future and started saving receipts. That's how I chose to fight. Quiet, careful, and all the way through. My name is Aaron, by the way. I fix things for a living, contracting and maintenance work. I was a regular guy before all of this. I liked the organized garage, knowing which drill bit goes with which anchor, that kind of daily gratification that appears impossible to ruin. I married Mia because she had a way of making even going to the grocery store feel like an inside joke. We had a rhythm, you know? Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon soccer practice for our son, Jamie, and ballet for our daughter, Claire. We had a whiteboard calendar and colored markers. We weren't flashy, but we were consistent. Consistent was big for me. My brother, Jake, didn't live too far away. We grew up sharing a bedroom, sharing cereal, sharing the timeout chair more times than I care to recall. He was younger and more casual about plans, the kind of guy who goes, "I'll be there in 5, and shows up 15 minutes later with coffee and a wide enough smile to forgive him. He came over all the time. Sunday barbecues, random "you free?" texts, game nights that always somehow ended with us scrolling through old music playlists. And it was good to have my brother around the house. It felt like home. There's a version of this story where I tell you that I saw a sign and I knew immediately. That's not how it went. It was less than that. Mia started to grip her phone a little more tightly, face down on the table. I noticed, but I didn't file it under suspicious. I filed it under, we're all too attached to our screens. She said she'd changed her passcode, and I laughed since I'd changed mine the week before after Jamie tried to buy $100 worth of games. We were being responsible, I figured. And yet, the laughter at the wrong pitch, the kind that doesn't come naturally. How Mia hugged me in the kitchen, stirring soup, but her eyes were somewhere else. Little things. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you walk into your own living room and everything's in its place, but something's off by an inch. That's what it was like. I just kept thinking this, pay attention, and I'd talk myself out of it. Because we were fine, right? We were fine. I was cooking more. I'd be at the stove, stirring pasta, watching Mia's phone light up on the counter. A text preview, and then it'd go dark. Once I saw the preview, just the top of a name and a heart emoji. I blinked. I felt absurd looking. She came in, and I said, "Hey," and she kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted anything from the fridge, and I told myself I was imagining things. And then there were the schedules. I was working around their schedules without meaning to. Mia was now doing yoga Thursday nights. Jake had also picked up a new volunteering shift Thursday nights. I'm a plan guy. I keep track. But I thought to myself, coincidence. It has to be. I picked the kids up early one day and took them for ice cream. We went home, and Mia wasn't back yet. Her gym bag was on the floor by the door. I didn't give it a second thought. I changed our bed sheets, because oh goodness, I love clean sheets. I put the dirty ones in the washing machine. When I reached to get detergent, my hand brushed against a crumpled up receipt that had fallen out of the bag we keep returns in. A hotel chain. Thursday night. A spa day package, the only difference being check-in was 7 p.m. My heart did the thing where it's attempting to be subtle and isn't. I folded the receipt in half and handed it back. Then I completed the laundry, helped Jamie with a math worksheet, and asked Claire about her silly song at ballet that she loved. I did not accuse anyone that night. I made a sandwich and ate it standing at the sink. Mia came home smiling, somewhat too brightly. We stood in the kitchen and talked about nothing for 10 minutes, the kind of nothing that husbands and wives talk about. I went to bed and lay there and listened to the rhythm of her breathing and the little noises the house makes when it is settling. Pay attention, I thought again, quietly. The next day, I started collecting artifacts. Not to use immediately, not to arm myself. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted the truth, and I wanted proof of the truth. I backed up our photos together. I remembered that in the junk drawer we had an old iPad that still had Mia's iCloud logged in. It shouldn't have, but it did. I'm neither ashamed nor proud. I did what I had to do. I opened it. It was dull at first. Family pictures, memes her cousins sent her, grocery lists, then messages that were anonymous. You know when someone's changed a contact name? A phone number and the little gray bubbles. Conversations that were guarded, but people get comfortable. They fall out of being cryptic every so often. They forget the other's nicknames and start using the real ones. I scrolled through weeks of messages. I screenshot. I saved receipts. I reminded myself, speaking out loud in the still kitchen, just facts. No explosions. Facts. The next Thursday, I tracked the location history because that old iPad still had the Find app activated. It pinged near that same hotel, then went quiet. I breathed. I put my children to bed, kissed their foreheads, and sat on the floor in the hall until it was totally dark. I did not go driving anywhere. I did not knock on any doors. I just sat and listened to my house breathe. Here's the thing I did not anticipate, the surprise I still feel in my stomach when I reflect on it. I went back to the messages and scrolled up, as context is everything. And there it was. Mia using my brother's name like it belonged to them. Inside jokes that felt familiar. The hotel bill had been put on 2 cards. Hers, and another card with the last 4 digits I recognized from a million trips to the corner store when we were kids. Jake. I don't know how to describe that feeling without it sounding as though I'm being melodramatic. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie scene with a surging soundtrack. It was a soft, awful clarity. People say, my world fell apart. Mine didn't. It stayed standing. That was the hard part. The world was the same. I was different in it. I wanted to call, scream. I wanted to get into the car and demand answers. So I did the dishes. I dried each plate and shoved it into the cabinet like I was filing something. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the table and made a list in the small notebook I keep for groceries. The list didn't say hurt, or why, or how. It said lawyer, accounts, passwords, copies, safe. I didn't sleep that night. Or perhaps I slept in 2-minute increments, because I recall the alarm and the gray morning light as if I'd sat and watched it come. I prepared breakfasts. I tied shoelaces. I hugged my children tightly enough that Jamie said, Dad, with a laugh, and I loosened up and told him I was just proud of his spelling test. I hugged Mia too. I had her go first. I inhaled her shampoo and thought of all the versions of us we'd been. She asked if I would be home for dinner. I'll try, I said. It was awful and it was ordinary, simultaneously. I made an appointment with a lawyer that day, just collaborative family law, into a search field, and chose one with a calm smile in his photo. Michael Collins. His office smelled of coffee and old books, a little, which made me want to trust him more than I should. He waited for me to speak in near a whisper, as though my voice might set something off that I couldn't shut down. I slid a folder on a thumb drive over to him. I don't want a scene, I said. I want the right thing done the right way. My kids first. He nodded. Then we're going to be thoughtful, and we're not going to rush the things that matter. You're going to take notes. You're going to let me worry about the paperwork, and you're going to worry about dinner and bedtimes. Can you do that? I can, I said. And I meant it. We had a plan. I opened a new checking account, one just in my name. I changed passwords that should have been changed years ago. I checked our credit and set up alerts. I switched my direct deposit. I did not hide money. I did nothing more than I was legally allowed to do. I simply considerately took back the pieces that belonged to me. I started an expense spreadsheet. I added dates. I saved receipts. I kept my hands busy. For a week, maybe 2, I was a split screen. In half, I was dad, school drop-offs. Can you bring me my yellow socks? Singing along to the radio, helping with a diorama made of shoeboxes and toothpicks. In the other half, I was running through a checklist in my head. Alternate housing in a short-term rental a few neighborhoods away, a deposit down, a second set of toothbrushes, a drawer that would be the kids', their favorite snack bars in the pantry so that it would be home even if the walls weren't. I talked to a counselor. That was one of Michael's suggestions, and I took it like medicine. Eve had a warm voice and a box of tissues on her side table, and when I told her the part about the messages, she said, I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you. It was so odd a thing for a stranger to say, but it lingered. She granted me permission to be both things. Sad and grown up. Painful and steady. I sat Mia down at the table on a muted Tuesday morning after drop-off. My hands were shaking, so I placed them flat on the wood. I looked at her, and I saw the woman I married and the woman she now was, and I didn't hate her. I just hurt. I'm filing for divorce, I said. My voice was steady and gruff at the same time. She blinked. What? I have evidence, I said to her, and watched her face change, the way someone staggers when they realize they're in front of a window, not a mirror. I don't want to fight. I don't want to yell. I've spoken to a lawyer already. We'll do this by law. I want to do this in a way that keeps our kids safe and their lives as normal as possible. Her eyes teared up. She reached her hand out to mine across the table, then pulled her hand back and clenched it in her lap. Aaron, please, can we talk? We can talk, I said, but we're going to do it with lawyers in the room. You know why? A very, very long silence. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. I wish sorry could rewind the clock. It couldn't. I know, I said. Me too. We told the kids in the most gentle way we could. We sat down and said, Mom and Dad are going to have 2 homes now. You didn't do anything wrong. We both love you. You'll be seeing both of us all the time. Jamie wondered if that meant 2 sets of Christmas stockings, and Claire wondered if her stuffed rabbit would have to choose which house it liked best. We told the truth, and then took them to the park, and I pushed them on the swings until my arms ached. The legal process began. Papers were served. There were meetings and hearings. I presented what I knew: messages, receipts, photos, a timeline. I was kind and factual and careful. I gave no speeches. I barely glanced in anyone's direction longer than was required. The judge questioned me. Every now and then Mia would say something, then go quiet, and everything in her seemed to be saying that she wished she'd made a different decision months earlier. Now and then, Jake showed up in a two-starch shirt, 3 rows back, not meeting my eye. I did not speak to him. I had nothing to say that would not break something in me I needed to keep intact. Things happened unexpectedly. There were Wednesdays when I drove to court and questioned whether Mrs. Gordon's roof leak would need a different sealant. There have been times I had to explain schedule differently to my kids. There have been nights, I am not ashamed to say, that I have sat in my new house and stared at the blinds and wished there was a map to this, something with a great big red "You are here" and an arrow pointing to where okay is. But every week, I collected small wins like marbles. A phone call from my boss confirming a promotion I'd labored months for. The first dinner in the new apartment that elicited a request for seconds from both kids. The sound of their laughter echoing off a new set of walls and still sounding like home. We told the family, not the internet. I called my parents and told them I had to stop by, and I sat on their couch and told the truth. I didn't use adverbs. I didn't perform my hurt. I simply laid out what had occurred and what I was doing about it. My mom's hand went to her mouth. My dad closed his eyes. They asked me if I was sure. I showed them enough that they didn't need to ask again. I didn't post anything. I didn't subtweet. I let facts and time do the talking. Other family members called. Close friends asked me out for coffee and stayed on after closing hours. There were some who did not know whom to call first and called me instead, since silence must appear to be leadership, I imagine. I did not tell my children anything except what they needed to know. I did not demonize their mother. I did not say a word about their uncle. I let adult decisions and adult consequences stay in the adult realm. The court weighed what needed weighing. It was not a revenge movie, but you could see the thread of justice pulling things into place. There was money that had been used on things that were not family expenses. There were trips that did not have explanations you could speak without losing. The judge looked at the paper trail and kept the direction of the dialogue on what the children needed and on what was equitable. At the time the temporary orders were made, I was named the primary residential parent. We had a parenting plan with detail. We worked out pickup times, holiday rotations, and a rule that said no negative talk about the other parent, which we both signed and which I honored like a promise I made to myself and to my children. Mia asked for things that made no sense. The judge sometimes said no, and she acted surprised. Jake stood off to the side, smaller somehow, watching the ripple effects of what he had chosen. I saw my notes and the man I was becoming. A man who didn't shout even when shouting would have been appropriate for a second. A man who highlighted court documents like he was studying for an exam called How to Be Stable. The final settlement wasn't what Mia had hoped for, I presume. It was sensible, not dramatic. But facts can change the shape of sensibleness. She kept some of what she wanted and lost some of what she believed she'd keep. I didn't ask for the most. I asked for what would rebuild a safe life for me and the kids. The court agreed. And outside the courthouse, life went on. I painted the kids' room in the new apartment, blue on one wall with tiny glow-in-the-dark dots you don't see until after lights out. I assembled a bookshelf and loaded it with their favorites. We tried new traditions, Taco Thursday, because we missed it once and chose a different day to make up for it, and it stuck. We made a dessert we called pretend pie, which was really pudding in a graham cracker crust. It was more delicious than it had any right to be. I channeled the energy I wasted on worrying into work, and the promotion came with a raise that gave my budget some elbow room. I learned to sleep again, one night at a time. People ask me sometimes, at the office or in passing in the supermarket this little town has that it refers to as a supermarket, "Are you okay?" And I tell them the truth. Yeah, I'm better than I was in some respects. That always surprises them, so I clarify. I like who I am in this. I know my own face better. I know what it is to select calm and continue to select it. A few months after the divorce was finalized, there was a family birthday. It was too big an occasion to avoid, so we negotiated the conditions of presence with the same diligence we did carpool lines. I walked in with Jamie and Claire holding my hands, because they were excited to give me the balloon they'd picked out. There was a silence in the room for a moment, because the people who love us also hurt with us, and they were trying to be kind. I saw Mia across the room. She was beautiful and tired. I nodded. She nodded. Jake was by the window, looking like a kid at a school assembly even though he was 30. He started to walk towards me and stopped, then tried again. "Hey," he said, voice low and older than his face. "Hey," I said. My voice was flat. I'm sore." I held up a hand. just enough to stop the sentence. I know, I said. I don't have space for a large conversation today. He swallowed. Okay. We stood there for a bit. People clinked glasses across the room. Somebody laughed too loudly on purpose to fill the air. I'm glad the kids have you, I said then, surprising myself somewhat, and meaning it. As an uncle. He looked at the floor and nodded. I'll be better, he said, and I hoped so, for his sake. The kids slept on the ride home, their heads tilted in opposite directions like bookends. I drove slow. The sky was that soft blue dusk that has you questioning whether you could change your life if you truly had to. I thought about the other me who could have lost his temper, who could have let rage be the narrator of this story. He was there. He was waiting for his turn at the microphone, but I didn't let him. I noticed a sign for the exit to our new street and took it. Here's the part that I have to say out loud, especially if you're sitting in your own kitchen with your own dull ache. The real revenge was not firing anybody from my life in some big dramatic fashion. It was not winning in court like on TV. It was practical and kind and slow. It was telling the truth to the people who needed to hear it and letting the truth sink in. It was leasing a home with solid locks and a motion-activated porch light. It was putting my kids to bed in beds with sheets that smelled like detergent and safety. It was being the man I want my son to be and my daughter to require of the men who love her, a man who doesn't break things when he is broken. I did not make a scene. I made a life. And when I finally did see them, Jake and Mia, months later, and even now when we cross paths in the social circles of our small town, I don't experience the searing I knew I would feel forever. I experience a quiet sort of relief. They tried to shatter something within me by doing what they did, but I repaired what mattered. I built a frame around the solid parts of me and let them bear the load. The rest is sound and air. If you're in it, if you're trapped in a kitchen with your heart pounding and a receipt in your hand, I'm not going to tell you to be strong. I'm only going to tell you what worked for me. Facts, not theories. Advice from a professional, not the comment section. A plan you can hold in your hand. A safe place for your kids to sleep. Dinner on the table. Honest phone calls to people who will come and sit with you in the quiet. And time. Time moves slowly, but it's steady too. One night, not so long ago, I tucked Jamie and Claire into bed in the apartment. Claire asked if the stars on the wall were real, and I told her they were real enough, and she laughed because that is a dad response. Jamie asked if we could go hiking this weekend, and I said yes, and I meant it without checking a calendar. I turned off the light and simply stood for a moment, listening to them breathe, as though the new house and the old house were both breathing in unison. Then I poured myself a glass of water, sat down at the table, and opened the file on my computer labeled Future. It's just a budget now, and a list of recipes to try. That's all I need it to be. Revenge does not have to be loud. It does not have to be messy. It can be the quiet pair of footsteps that lead you out of a room that no longer has space for you. It can be the quiet voice that says, "We're done here," and the quiet hand that builds something new. It can be the choice to let the truth speak for itself while you move forward. If any of this sounds like your story, I'm sorry, but I'm also proud of you, in the way that stranger was proud of me. Because if you're listening, you're already choosing the careful version of yourself, and that version is strong. If you've had anything like this happen to you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if this tale spoke to you even a little bit, don't be shy about liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell.